They refused the black surgeon. Until he saved their daughter, the doors of St. Catherine Medical Center burst open at 9:43 on a stormy Friday night. Paramedics rushed a stretcher through the emergency entrance while nurses ran beside them, shouting numbers and medical instructions over the sound of thunder. On the stretcher lay 16-year-old Lily Harrington. Her school uniform was soaked with rain and blood. A deep cut ran across her forehead, but that was not what worried the emergency team. Beneath the blanket covering her body, the left side of her chest barely moved. She was in the passenger seat, one paramedic reported. Vehicle struck by a delivery truck at high speed. Possible chest trauma, internal bleeding, and cardiac injury. Blood pressure is falling. Lily's mother, Margaret Harrington, followed only a few steps behind. Her expensive cream coat was torn at the sleeve, and her hair hung wet around her face. "Please help her," she cried. "Please don't let her die." Her husband, Charles, entered moments later, breathing heavily. He had driven from a business dinner after receiving the call. He still wore a black suit and silver tie, but the confidence he normally carried had disappeared. A nurse stopped the parents outside the trauma room. "You need to wait here." "That is our daughter," Charles said. "We understand, but the doctors need room to work." Through the glass doors, Margaret watched strangers surround Lily. They cut away her clothing, attached wires to her chest, inserted tubes, and called for blood. Then a tall man in dark blue surgical scrubs entered the room. He was black, perhaps in his early 40s, with calm eyes and a serious expression. He moved directly to Lily's side and studied the monitor. "What do we have?" he asked. 16-year-old female, a resident answered. "Severe blunt force trauma to the chest. Ultrasound shows fluid around the heart. Her pressure is 60/30 and dropping." The doctor placed a hand on Lily's neck, checking her pulse. "Call the operating room. Activate the cardiac trauma team." "Dr. Bennett," the resident said, "Dr. Caldwell is still operating." "I know. I'm taking this case." Charles heard the name through the open door. "Dr. Bennett." A nurse approached the parents. "The surgeon will speak with you in a moment." A few minutes later, the man in blue scrubs came out. His surgical cap was already in his hand. "I'm Dr. Isaiah Bennett," he said. "I'm the head of cardiothoracic surgery." Margaret stared at him, confused. "You are the surgeon?" "Yes." Charles looked past him toward the trauma room. "We were told the head surgeon was coming." "I am the head surgeon." A brief silence followed. The emergency department continued moving around them, but for the Harringtons, everything seemed to stop. Charles straightened his shoulders. "We want another doctor." Isaiah had heard those words before. Sometimes families requested another surgeon because they wanted a second opinion. Sometimes they were frightened by his age. Sometimes they had researched a different specialist. But Charles Harrington had asked before knowing anything about Isaiah's training, experience, or success rate. Isaiah kept his voice calm. "Your daughter may have a tear in the wall of her heart. Blood is collecting around it and preventing it from pumping properly. She needs emergency surgery." "We still want someone else," Charles replied. "There is no one else available." "What about Dr. Caldwell?" "He is performing a transplant. He cannot leave his patient." "Then call another hospital." Isaiah looked directly at him. "Your daughter will not survive a transfer." Margaret brought both hands to her mouth. Charles frowned. "You cannot know that. I have spent 18 years treating this type of injury. Her blood pressure is collapsing. If we do not operate within minutes, her heart may stop." Charles looked Isaiah up and down. "You expect me to trust you with my daughter's life?" Isaiah felt the familiar pressure in his chest. It was not fear. It was not surprise. It was exhaustion. He had graduated first in his class from medical school. He had completed advanced surgical training at one of the best hospitals in the country. He had served as a trauma surgeon in military hospitals and had performed more than 700 heart operations. Yet there were still rooms where none of that mattered until he proved it. "I do not need you to trust my appearance," Isaiah said. "I need you to understand the medical facts." Charles's face hardened. "Do not accuse me of anything." "I have not accused you. I have told you that Lily is dying." Margaret grabbed her husband's arm. "Charles, let him do it. We do not know him. He is the head surgeon. There must be someone more experienced." Isaiah answered immediately. "I have performed more emergency cardiac repairs than any surgeon in this hospital." Charles hesitated. For a moment, his expression revealed that he had not expected that answer. Then he shook his head. "I want Dr. Caldwell." A nurse rushed through the door. "Dr. Bennett." Her heart rhythm is becoming unstable. Isaiah turned to the Harringtons. We are out of time. Margaret looked through the glass at Lily's pale face. Save her, she whispered. Charles turned sharply. Margaret. She faced him with tears streaming down her cheeks. Save our daughter, she said to Isaiah. Isaiah held out the consent tablet. Margaret signed. Charles did not. Isaiah did not wait. He handed the tablet to the nurse and ran toward the operating room. Lily's stretcher moved quickly through the corridor. The monitor above her beeped faster, then slower, then faster again. Isaiah walked beside her. Lily, he said, though she was unconscious, my name is Dr. Bennett. I'm going to operate on your heart. Her eyes did not open. He continued speaking anyway. You are not alone. The operating room doors opened. Bright white lights reflected off steel instruments. Nurses prepared blood, machines, tubes, and surgical equipment. Isaiah washed his hands, put on a sterile gown, and took his place beside Lily. Scalpel. The first incision revealed the seriousness of the injury. Blood filled Lily's chest. Suction, Isaiah ordered. 2 suction devices entered the wound. The anesthesiologist looked at the monitor. Pressure is 50/25. Give another unit of blood. Already running. Isaiah opened the sac surrounding the heart. A wave of blood escaped, briefly relieving the pressure. Lily's heart became visible. There was a tear along the right side, probably caused by the force of the collision. Isaiah pressed one finger against it. Prepare bypass. His assistant, Dr. Helen Moore, examined the damage. The tear extends toward the coronary vessel. I see it. If it spreads, she will lose blood supply to the heart muscle. Helen nodded. Isaiah began repairing the tear, stitch by careful stitch. Outside the operating room, Margaret sat in the waiting area with her hands clasped. Charles stood near the window. Neither had spoken for several minutes. Finally, Margaret looked at him. You almost stopped him. Charles did not turn around. I was trying to protect her. From the only surgeon available? I wanted the best. He said he was the best. Charles faced her. And we were supposed to believe him because he said so? You did not ask him about his experience until after you rejected him. Charles's jaw tightened. This is not the time. It may be the only time. He looked away. Margaret continued. When he walked out of that room, you saw a black man. You did not see a surgeon. That is not fair, isn't it? I was afraid. So was I. My daughter was dying. She is my daughter too. Charles sat down heavily. The rain struck the hospital windows. He loosened his tie and stared at the floor. I have never treated anyone badly because of race. Margaret wiped her eyes. You tried to stop a doctor from saving Lily before you knew anything about him. I wanted Caldwell. Because you know Caldwell is white. Charles said nothing. The truth sat between them. For years, he had believed prejudice belonged to other people. Cruel people. Uneducated people. People who shouted hateful words. Charles Harrington was a respected businessman. He donated to hospitals and schools. He shook hands with black employees. He attended charity events and spoke often about fairness. But when Isaiah Bennett had stood before him, Charles had not seen education, experience, or skill. He had seen skin color and uncertainty. Inside the operating room, Lily's heart began to fail. Rhythm is unstable, the anesthesiologist said. Isaiah placed another stitch. Pressure, 40/20. Helen looked toward the monitor. We need bypass now. Isaiah nodded. The team connected Lily to the heart-lung machine, which would temporarily pump blood and oxygen through her body. Flow started, the perfusionist reported. The heart slowed. Isaiah examined the wound more closely. The tear was larger than the scan had suggested. The tissue around it was bruised and fragile. He began removing damaged sections. Then Helen saw something. There is another injury. Isaiah followed her gaze. A second tear ran behind the heart, almost hidden from view. It was close to the pulmonary artery. That was not on the ultrasound, Helen said. It was probably sealed by pressure until we opened the chest. The second tear began bleeding. More suction. Blood spread rapidly across the surgical field. Pressure is falling again. She is on full bypass, Helen said. Why is the pressure falling? Isaiah understood immediately. There is another source. He searched quickly. The collision had not only damaged Lily's heart. A broken rib had punctured a major vessel deeper in her chest. Isaiah could see the sharp edge of bone. Blood poured from behind it. We need vascular clamps. The nurse placed the instruments in his hand. Isaiah reached carefully around the heart. The The space was narrow. One wrong movement could tear the vessel completely. He placed the first clamp. The bleeding slowed, but did not stop. Second clamp. He adjusted his position. The vessel slipped. Blood filled the area again. The monitor alarmed. Blood volume is dropping. Isaiah took a slow breath. He had learned years ago that panic was contagious. If the lead surgeon panicked, the entire room became less precise. "Everyone listen," he said calmly. "We control the vessel, remove the rib fragment, and repair the wall. No unnecessary movement." The room became still. Isaiah tried again. This time, the clamp held. Bleeding reduced. Helen removed the broken section of rib. Isaiah could finally see the full injury. The vessel wall had been torn almost halfway through. Helen looked at him. "That needs a graft. We do not have enough healthy tissue for a standard repair. What do you suggest?" Isaiah studied the damage. He remembered a technique he had used years earlier while serving at a military hospital overseas. A young soldier had arrived with a similar vessel injury caused by metal from an explosion. The repair had been dangerous, but it had worked. "We use a reinforced patch," he said. Helen understood what he meant. "That technique is difficult in this location." "Yes. And if it narrows the vessel, the pressure will increase." "I know. We could wait for Caldwell." Isaiah looked at the clock. "Lily cannot." Helen nodded. "Then we do it." Isaiah began. The patch had to be shaped perfectly. Too small, and it would not cover the tear. Too large, and it could block blood flow. He cut the material, placed it over the injury, and passed the needle through the fragile tissue. The first stitch held. Then the second. The third tore through. "Damn," Helen whispered. Isaiah removed it and changed the angle. His gloves were covered in blood. Sweat formed beneath his surgical cap. The nurse wiped his forehead without being asked. "Pressure remains low," the anesthesiologist warned. "How much time?" "We can maintain this for several minutes, but not much longer." Isaiah continued. Each movement was controlled. The patch slowly covered the wound. "Last stitch," he said. The needle passed through. He tied the knot. "Reduce bypass flow." The perfusionist adjusted the machine. Blood returned gradually to the repaired vessel. Everyone watched. For 1 second, the patch held. Then a thin red line appeared along the lower edge. "Leak," Helen said. Isaiah placed another stitch. The leak stopped. "Continue reducing bypass." Lily's heart began beating weakly. The anesthesiologist watched the monitor. "Rhythm is slow. Give calcium and prepare pacing wires." Medication entered Lily's bloodstream. Her heart contracted again. Then it stopped. A straight line appeared on the monitor. "Cardiac arrest. Start pacing." Electrical impulses moved through the wires. Nothing happened. "Charged to 20. Ready. Clear." Lily's body moved slightly beneath the drapes. The monitor remained flat. Helen looked at Isaiah. Again. Again. A second shock. Nothing. Isaiah placed his hand around Lily's heart. It felt soft and motionless. He began internal cardiac massage, gently compressing it between his fingers. "Epinephrine. Given." "Come on, Lily," Isaiah said quietly. He compressed the heart again. Once. Twice. 3 times. No response. The anesthesiologist looked at the clock. 2 minutes without rhythm. Isaiah continued. He remembered the photograph in Lily's file. She was smiling beside a piano, wearing a blue dress. Her emergency contact information described her as a music student. A 16-year-old girl. A daughter. A life not yet lived. "Come on," he repeated. Then he felt movement. A small twitch beneath his fingers. The monitor beeped once. Then again. A weak rhythm appeared. "We have electrical activity," the anesthesiologist said. Isaiah kept his hand in place. The heart contracted. The beat grew stronger. "Pressure is rising." Helen released a breath. 60/30. Keep supporting her. 70/40. The rhythm stabilized. No one celebrated. Not yet. Isaiah examined both repairs again. The patches held. The bleeding slowed. After 6 more hours, the team closed Lily's chest. When Isaiah finally removed his gloves, his hands trembled slightly from exhaustion. He had been operating for nearly 9 hours. Outside, the storm had ended. Morning light entered the waiting room. Charles and Margaret stood as Isaiah approached. Margaret searched his face. "Is she alive?" Isaiah nodded. "She survived the operation." Margaret collapsed against her husband. Charles closed his eyes. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Charles asked, Is she going to recover? She is stable, but the next 24 hours are critical. Her heart stopped during the operation, but we restored the rhythm quickly. We need to monitor her brain, kidneys, lungs, and the repaired vessels. Margaret wiped her tears. What happened? Isaiah explained the 2 tears in Lily's heart and the hidden injury caused by the broken rib. He described the blood loss and the cardiac arrest. You repaired all of that? Charles asked. The team repaired it. But you were the lead surgeon. Yes. Charles looked down. Isaiah was too tired to guess what the man wanted to say. Finally, Charles raised his eyes. I owe you an apology. Isaiah remained silent. When you came out to speak with us, I decided you were not the doctor I wanted. I did not ask where you trained or how many surgeries you had performed. I judged you before you had the chance to explain anything. Margaret touched his arm. Charles continued. I told myself it was fear, but fear does not explain everything. No, Isaiah said. The word was quiet but firm. Charles nodded painfully. You saved my daughter after I treated you without respect. I operated on Lily because she needed a surgeon. I know. No, Isaiah replied. I do not think you do. Charles looked at him. Isaiah sat across from them. I have spent my entire adult life preparing for emergencies like this. I studied while others slept. I missed birthdays, holidays, and years with my own family. I served in military hospitals where I operated during explosions. I have held children's hearts in my hands. He paused. And I still walk into rooms where people decide I am not qualified before I speak. Margaret lowered her head. Isaiah continued. You had every right to ask questions. You had every right to understand the risks. But you did not question my technique. You questioned whether someone who looked like me could be the best person in the room. Charles's eyes filled with tears. I am ashamed. Shame is a feeling, Isaiah said. Change is an action. What should I do? Start by staying beside your daughter. If she wakes up, be grateful. Then decide what kind of man you will be after this fear is gone. Isaiah stood. You may see her soon. He walked away before they could say anything else. Lily remained unconscious through the day. Machines helped her breathe. Tubes carried medication and blood. Nurses checked her condition constantly. Margaret sat at her bedside, holding her hand. Charles stood near the window, remembering every word Isaiah had said. That evening, Isaiah entered the intensive care unit. He checked Lily's monitor and examined the latest test results. Her heart function is improving, he told the parents. Margaret looked hopeful. What about her brain? We will know more when she wakes up. And when will that happen? Charles asked. We are reducing the medication now. They waited. An hour passed. Then another. At 11:17 that night, Lily moved her fingers. Margaret leaned forward. Lily. Her eyelids opened slowly. She looked confused and frightened. A breathing tube prevented her from speaking. You are in the hospital, Margaret said. You were in an accident, but you are safe. Lily's eyes moved toward her father. Charles held her other hand. I am here. Isaiah stood at the foot of the bed. Lily noticed him. Her eyebrows lifted in a silent question. Isaiah stepped closer. I'm Dr. Bennett. I repaired your heart. Tears gathered in Lily's eyes. She tried to move. Do not fight the tube, Isaiah said gently. You are doing well. We will remove it when you are ready. Lily squeezed her mother's hand. For the first time since the accident, Charles smiled. 2 days later, the breathing tube was removed. Lily's voice was weak. My chest hurts. That is expected, Isaiah said. We had to repair several injuries. Will I have a scar? Yes. How big? Isaiah showed her the approximate length with his fingers. Lily closed her eyes. I have a piano competition in 3 months. Margaret looked at Isaiah. Will she be able to play? Not immediately. Her body needs time to heal. Lily opened her eyes. But eventually? Isaiah smiled slightly. If you follow instructions and work with your therapists, there is a good chance. Good chance means maybe. In medicine, almost everything means maybe. Lily studied him. My dad said you saved me. The entire team saved you. He said he almost did not let you operate. The room became silent. Charles looked at his daughter. Lily, because you are black? She asked Isaiah. Margaret closed her eyes. Isaiah pulled a chair beside the bed. Your father was afraid. That is not what I asked. Isaiah respected her directness. Yes, he said. Race influenced his decision. Lily looked at her father. Charles stepped closer. I was wrong. You could have killed me. The words struck him with more force than any accusation Isaiah had made. Charles sat down. Yes, he whispered. Lily turned back to Isaiah. Why did you save me? Because you needed help. Even after he insulted you? You were my patient. His prejudice was not your injury. Lily stared at him for several seconds. Then she said, I'm sorry. You do not owe me an apology. He is my father. You are responsible for your choices, not his. Lily looked down at the blanket. Are you angry? Yes. Her eyes widened slightly. Isaiah continued. People sometimes think forgiveness means pretending anger does not exist. It does not. I can be angry about how I was treated and still care for you. Do you forgive him? That is not the most important question. What is? Whether he changes. Charles nodded slowly. I will. Isaiah looked at him. Then prove it. Lily stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. Recovery was painful. She struggled to sit up, then to stand, then to walk. Some days she cried from exhaustion. Other days she became angry at everyone who tried to help. Isaiah visited regularly. He never treated her like a fragile object. He explained every test, every medication, and every risk. One afternoon, he found her sitting near the window with a small electronic keyboard on her lap. You are not supposed to lift that, he said. It weighs almost nothing. That is what every patient says before reopening an incision. Lily removed her hands from the keys. I just wanted to know if I could still play. And my fingers remember. That is a good beginning. She looked at the scar beneath her hospital gown. I used to hate making mistakes during performances. Most people do. Now it seems stupid. Fear changes size after you survive something larger. Lily nodded. My father is changing. How do you know? He keeps listening when he wants to defend himself. Isaiah smiled. That is difficult for many people. He told me he reviewed his company's hiring records. Charles owned Harrington Development Group, one of the largest real estate companies in the city. He found out that almost every senior manager is white. Lily continued. He says he never told anyone to discriminate. Discrimination does not always require direct orders. That is what my mother said. What will he do? He hired an outside group to investigate. Isaiah looked through the window. That is a start. Do you think he is a bad person? Isaiah considered the question. I think people want life to be simple. Good people on one side, bad people on the other. But a person can love his daughter and still make a dangerous decision. A person can be generous in one situation and unfair in another. So what matters? What he chooses next. 6 weeks after the accident, Lily left the hospital. Doctors, nurses, therapists, and hospital staff gathered near the entrance. Lily wore a red coat and carried a small bouquet of flowers. She walked slowly, supported by her mother. Before leaving, she stopped in front of Isaiah. I made something for you. She handed him a folded piece of paper. Inside was a drawing of a heart shaped like a piano. Across the center, golden lines repaired a deep crack. Under the picture, she had written, You repaired my heart when my family failed to see yours. Isaiah read the sentence twice. That is very powerful, he said. I mean it. I know. Charles stepped forward. He held out his hand. Isaiah accepted it. Thank you, Charles said. You are welcome. I started making changes. Isaiah waited. We completed the first review of my company. Qualified candidates were being rejected before interviews because of their names and neighborhoods. Managers called it cultural fit. Isaiah raised an eyebrow. Cultural fit can hide many things. We changed the process. Applications will be reviewed without names or photographs. Promotion decisions will require independent review. Good. I also removed 2 managers. That probably made people uncomfortable. It did. Then the changes may be real. Charles nodded. I know I cannot erase what happened. No, but I can choose what happens next. Isaiah looked toward Lily. She smiled. Yes, he said. You can. 3 months later, Lily returned to the piano. At first, she could practice for only 10 minutes before her chest and shoulders began to hurt. Then she reached 20 minutes. Then 30. She played slowly, rebuilding strength 1 note at a time. The accident changed the way she understood music. Before, she had played to impress judges and teachers. She worried about being perfect. Now every note felt like proof that she was alive. Her heart beat beneath the scar. Her hands moved across the keys. The sound filled the room. The annual city music competition took place 6 months after the accident. Lily invited Isaiah. He arrived late because of an emergency surgery and quietly took a seat near the back of the concert hall. Lily walked onto the stage wearing a dark blue dress. The top of her scar was visible. She did not hide it. Charles and Margaret sat in the front row. Lily placed her hands on the piano. For a moment, the hall was silent. Then she began. The music opened softly, almost like a heartbeat heard from far away. It grew stronger. Pain entered the melody, followed by fear and anger. Then the music changed. The rhythm became powerful. Hope rose through every note. Isaiah listened without moving. He remembered Lily's silent heart beneath the operating lights. He remembered blood, alarms, and the fragile patch that had held. Now she sat beneath golden lights, alive and unafraid. When the final note ended, the audience stood. Lily looked toward the back of the hall. She saw Isaiah and smiled. After the performance, she found him near the exit. "You came. I said I would. You missed the first two performers. A patient's heart was not interested in your schedule." Lily laughed. Charles and Margaret approached. Charles looked different. Not physically, but in the way he carried himself. The certainty that had once protected him from uncomfortable truths was gone. "I spoke publicly about what happened," he told Isaiah. Lily looked surprised. "When?" "At a business conference yesterday." "What did you say?" Isaiah asked. "The truth. All of it." "Yes." Charles took a breath. "I told them that when you entered the hospital room, I saw your race before I saw your qualifications. I told them I nearly endangered my daughter because I trusted my assumptions more than evidence." Isaiah studied him. "How did they respond?" "Some people applauded. Some became uncomfortable. One man told me I should not damage my reputation by talking about it." "What did you say?" "I told him protecting my reputation was how I avoided changing for so long." Isaiah nodded. "That is better than an apology." Charles looked toward his daughter. "She taught me." Lily shook her head. "Almost losing me taught you." They stood together in the crowded hallway. A year earlier, such a moment would have seemed impossible. Not because prejudice disappeared easily, but because real change required more than guilt. It required truth. It required discomfort. It required action after no one was watching. Later that evening, Isaiah returned to the hospital. A new emergency patient had arrived, an 8-year-old boy with a congenital heart defect and severe complications. The boy's parents waited outside the operating room. When Isaiah introduced himself, the father looked at the name on his coat. "You are the head surgeon?" "Yes." "Can you save our son?" "I will do everything possible." The father nodded. "Then we trust you." No hesitation. No refusal. No demand for another face. Isaiah knew one respectful family could not erase years of prejudice. It could not remove every room in which he had been doubted. But progress was sometimes quiet. Sometimes it was simply a door that remained open. He entered the operating room and washed his hands. The child lay beneath the bright lights. Machines beeped around him. The team waited. Isaiah placed one hand gently over the boy's shoulder. It was the same promise he gave every patient. "You are not a diagnosis. You are not someone else's fear. You are a life." He looked at the surgical team. Scalpel. The instrument was placed in his hand. Isaiah began. He did not operate to prove that Charles Harrington had been wrong. He did not operate to earn respect that should never have been denied. He operated because skill carried responsibility, because a child's heart was failing, because time mattered, and because the true measure of a person was not how others judged him when he entered a room, but what he chose to do once he was there. Months later, Lily's drawing still hung in Isaiah's office. The heart shaped like a piano, the golden lines repairing what had been broken. Whenever he looked at it, he remembered that saving a life did not always change a person, but sometimes it opened a door. Sometimes it forced people to see the truth they had spent years avoiding. And sometimes the surgeon they refused became the reason their daughter lived long enough to teach them how to change.